So just to let everybody to know that the meeting is being recorded so that those who are not participating will have access to the information later on. So thank you very much for joining our very exciting AI masterclass today. And even before we start with the introductions, I had said maybe you can check in, say hello, tell us where you're joining from. I'm seeing colleagues from Togo, Cameroon, Tanzania, Uganda, and of course, Kenya very well represented in today's room. So keep introducing yourself on the chat even as we move along so that we can, get a sense of everybody who's joining. I see there's also somebody who's joined from Switzerland. So that's great to have you all in the room. So even as we continue introducing ourselves, maybe we just wanted to have a quick poll on the chat. If you could tell us what you currently use AI for, one, and then two, as you join this masterclass today, what is your expectation? What do you expect to learn from this masterclass? So keep the conversations going on the chat. We'll be referring to it once in a while as we go along the session today. I think the other thing we'd also like to get a sense of how many of our participants today have participated in the trainings for the Tony Elumelu Foundation, either the first W4A cohort and the second W4A cohort. So if you've participated, maybe you can also just put in the chat and write TF cohort 1 or TF cohort 2. We'd also just have to get a sense on, the continuity, how many of our women entrepreneurs that we've started training are also participating in all the other products or activities we have within W4A. Yeah. Great. It's so good to see everybody in the room and the people are still joining, but we will just go ahead and start. My name is Olivia. I am an advisor with GIZ, a program called We4D, where we promote employment for young people and women, but mainly in the green businesses, in the green sector. So within the We4D program, there's a program that focuses primarily on women entrepreneurship. It's called IYBA We4A, Investing in Young Businesses in Africa, Women Entrepreneurship for Africa. And it's my pleasure today to welcome you all to this masterclass on unlocking AI for business growth. On behalf of the entire We4A team, many of whom are represented here in the room, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to join us. And just to assure you, today's session is not simply about understanding AI, but of course about how it can really help us in our businesses in a more practical way. So maybe before I hand it over to our expert for the day, I will just provide a quick overview about W4A and especially W4A in Kenya. We work to, of course, to improve the economic situation of women entrepreneurs in the country. W4A is spread across 8 countries in the sub-Saharan Africa, and we work in Kenya to strengthen women-led businesses by improving, access to markets, access to finance, providing specific business development services and digital innovation. And so today's masterclass builds on an earlier co-design workshop that we had with women entrepreneurs in Kenya. And so it has helped us to develop a toolkit that can really help women entrepreneurs run and grow their businesses. The toolkit we'll be sharing later on today as a result of these conversations and as a result of the masterclass. So before I hand over, also just a bit of housekeeping. Please keep your microphones muted unless invited to speak. Feel free to use the chat throughout the entire session. We'll also have, of course, time for questions, so don't worry. But if you have, questions as we move along, please also include it in the chat. We will definitely be referring to that. Those who've just joined, please know that this session is being recorded so that participants who are unable to join today can benefit from the discussions. But most importantly, we want to make it as interactive as possible. There are no wrong questions, so please participate as much as you want in the chat. And when you're given the time to speak, we welcome all sorts of participation. So, as I said, I'm joined here by my team here in Kenya, specifically by my colleague Kayla, who's supporting with looking at into the chat and also just presenting, but also colleagues from We4A across the 8 countries that we operate in, and also the HQ in Ashburn. So, yeah, without much further ado, I think I will hand it over to our expert for the day. She's called Lynette Kwamboka-Nyang'ao. Lynette is the Director for Data and Digital Transformation at Data Science Limited, Nairobi, here in Kenya. Of course, Lynette has extensive experience in digital transformation, AI applications. She's also one of our experts who joined in the workshop and helped us develop the toolkit that we will be going through and presenting to the team. And maybe also I can mention here, Lynette, with your permission, that she was also celebrated as one of the 40 emerging leaders, women leaders in Kenya, the top 40 under 40 in Kenya. And so she's made a significant impact, of course, using her skill as AI in different areas. And maybe I can let her, shed some more light on that. So thank you, everyone. Please continue the conversations on the chat. Lynette, over to you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Olivia. And thank you to the GSZ team for inviting me. And I have to start by saying hello, habari yenu, bonjour. From wherever you are, I have seen we have a very diverse representation of multiple countries here. And I want to welcome you and thank you all for taking the time to join us today. My name, as Olivia has mentioned, is Lynette Kwamboka-Nyang'ao. I am a woman in Kenya. I'm an entrepreneur. Just as Olivia was speaking, I was listing the number of businesses I run, and I was like, wow, okay. I run 5 companies doing different things. From the introduction, Olivia mentioned my data science and computer science background, running Data Science Limited, which was founded in 2013. But I also run a furniture manufacturing business. I run a shoe manufacturing business. I run a healthcare company. In fact, we have some interest in a hospital, and all of this will become relevant shortly. And like all Kenyans, I also do a bit of farming. So I mentioned that to kind of put things into perspective and to because I'll be using some of the experiences in the different businesses in terms of how I use AI, one as a user, but then how I have also been able to benefit from AI as a practitioner, but also as someone who deeply understands the topic and the things that go around there. I noted that we have participants from Kenya, Uganda, Malawi, Tanzania, Togo, Switzerland, Cameroon, and Germany. I don't know if someone else has been added from a new country, but welcome everyone. So today we're going to talk about the AI integration toolkit for women entrepreneurs and the work that has gone into this. From the expectations I have seen for some in terms of what you want to learn from here, and what generally I have seen is how to really integrate and use AI in the work that you are doing. But I also want to focus on how to avoid some of the pitfalls that could cost you. Every so often, I listen to or I watch, this TV show called Divorce Court, and Judge Lynn Toller always says there's something called the stupid tax. A tax that you pay because you are not knowledgeable that you could have actually avoided. So, how do we avoid some of those things? And for those in Kenya, we are aware about the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner, and some of the things that we have to do, to be compliant. But then somewhere within the process, we will also do a practical assessment of our own businesses and through an exercise of business process mapping, so that we can identify some of the issues, so that we can see where we are on the AI pyramid and how we can actually advance to becoming expert users, but also expert contributors to the AI ecosystem. So yeah, I'm going to start. So we have 90 minutes or a little less right now.
Sorry, Lynette, we are seeing the presenter view and not the participant view? Because we can see both screen, the current screen and the next slide. Is that what you want to show?
Can you see how we'll spend our 90 minutes?
Yes, we
Can
can.
you see that
Okay.
slide? Is that
Yes, we
okay?
can. It's all
Um,
right. It's just we're seeing, that's fine. Yeah.
okay. But can you see the full screen?
No, we are seeing the split screen. We're seeing the presenter view, what you're seeing in terms of the full screen
Okay.
and the next slide.
Let me try to see
You can
how
change the
to.
view.
What about now?
Yeah.
Is that
Yes, there you
better?
go. Now we
Okay,
see the full
perfect,
screen.
perfect, perfect. So
Thank you.
I'll move that to the next screen. Thanks, Olivia. Yeah. So as I have mentioned, how we'll spend the next less than 90 minutes now, we're going to learn, we're going to apply, and we're going to reflect. And hopefully, this is going to be a continuous exercise through our business processes. So it's not going to be, or my hope is that this masterclass is not going to start and end here, and it is something that we're going to carry on to our business processes, and something we're going to continuously do. So why now? When we're thinking about AI, AI has been a great buzz, in the world, really, not just in business and not just in Africa. And different people are trying to see how to utilize AI and from a government perspective, for instance. And I must first of all apologize that a lot of the examples I will use will be from Kenya. I'll try to make them as relevant as possible for those who are not in Kenya. But then feel free to also make your contributions in the chat. But in Kenya, for example, last year, the government launched the Kenya AI strategy last March. And I have seen actually this week, the Ministry of ICT has also put out what is called the the proposed data and AI policy, AI and emerging technologies policy for review. So there's a lot of legislation that is coming up. And, there's always a question of how businesses can benefit, and especially women-led businesses can benefit from all the technology and the work that is happening. And AI production and consumption really needs to reflect the business needs, and especially women's business needs, the efforts and the contributions. So how do we do this? We have seen multiple studies, the MIT study, for instance, early this year, last year, that it was a great buzz, that AI has not made any returns in businesses. Up to 95% of businesses and institutions that have invested in AI have not seen any return. We have seen people firing, staff en masse. Really hoping that AI will do something. And in most cases, it's not done much for them. But then there's that question of, on the flip side, are there, the 5%? Is it a story worth talking about? Is it worth spreading? Is it worth looking into? And we have, 20 to 40% reduction in operation costs reported by businesses with good AI deployment. And that has to be the key, good AI deployment, because the way that we have seen, AI done, in most cases, it's, there's AI, let's replace human beings, let's put in the systems. And I'm sure we've seen some of the memes that talk about, you replace someone, and then you realize a week later that they understood how the entire business process, works. So why now? Basically, because there's a lot that is happening. There's the fear of missing out, but then there's also, the opportunities that are presented by what could be. So this brings us to some of the myths and facts, and I'm sure that we've encountered, this. There's the myth that AI is only for big companies with large budgets, but we have seen that there are free and low cost tools that can be used by medium, small enterprises. Although there's also a disclaimer in using some of these, because there is a difference between consumer AI products and enterprise AI products, especially when it comes to thinking about privacy, especially when it comes to thinking about IP. And that is something that we will also talk about a little later. There is the, AI will replace human jobs, and which is true. This is not entirely a myth because there are some jobs for sure that are going to be replaced, but then there's also the fact that AI automates repetitive tasks but creates room for creativity, leadership, and innovation. And to a certain level, it does enhance human capacity. So I like to think about this particular problem when I think about the parable of the elephant, where the blind man and the elephant, where, blind men touch an elephant, and depending on where one touches, if it's the ear, they think about it as something different. If it's the nose or the trunk, if it's the tusks, if it's the leg, if it's the tail, right? So AI can be what you want it to be, and AI can be how you are experiencing it. And in most cases, we are seeing that there's really no one size that fits all. And then that you need to be a tech expert to use AI. We have seen that in most cases, you do not need to be. There are lots of AI solutions that are plug and play. I was doing some prompt engineering, which is, very easy and nice to do on platforms like Lovable, using Gemini, Claude, ChatGPT. That, for instance, even in my own company at Data Science Limited, I have a team of software engineers. So you would expect that at any given point, everything that we have is up to date, right? But there's some websites that we have deprioritized because we have client work. This is synonymous with or it's very similar to a time when my bed broke and I slept on the floor, actually just like 4 months ago, and I slept on the floor for 3 weeks. And I was laughing and saying I could never tell anyone that I own a carpentry shop because you're so busy, you're not able to do something. And I wish I could prompt engineer a bed. I finally did get a bed. But then, it's the same thing. We had websites that are completely out of date, but I cannot get my team to focus on our websites because we have client work. But then with prompt engineering, I started actually paying for AI tools, and within 3 weeks, all our websites were up to date. Of course, we had the privilege of then being a tech expert is you're able to go in and look at the security issues and look at the deployment issues, put them on your platforms. For instance, we use Amazon Web Services, so you're able to do that. But then not everyone needs that super computing and super expertise in technology to be able to do that. So we have seen some of the things that AI is able to do and help us become efficient. There's also a myth about AI and data are risky. It's safe to avoid them. But then risk comes from misuse and poor governance, not AI itself. For instance, we have the Kenya Data Protection Act and frameworks like GDPR from the EU that have helped to keep things protected and to provide some kinds of guardrails. And I'll be giving some of the examples of the risks that come out of ignoring the data and how the AI is essentially used within organizations. But then one thing that I like to advise businesses are to always think about compliance with data protection laws, not simply because of the fact that the laws exist, but also because of the trust that you build with customers. Even if you're a tech or non-tech company, always think about the data that you're collecting, and data being a foundational element of AI becomes very, very important. Yeah, we've covered part of this, which is AI is just for tech and digital businesses, which is not. I have given you examples of the work that I do at the workshop. In fact, I want to stop here and give you a very quirky example of a conversation with ChatGPT. Um, sorry, let me do this. Mm, great, here we go. Can we all see, what can you see, Olivia?
Uh, yes, I can see, yeah, ChatGPT and
A
the
chat
conversations
GPT.
you had with Chat.
Perfect,
Yes.
perfect, perfect. So yeah, so I like to give this example. This was actually a conversation I had with ChatGPT just a week ago or less than a week ago, because I was doing some interior design with the furniture work for an institution. They have this space and they said they would like for me to redesign it and provide like the partitioning, the furniture, and everything. So they just gave me an empty room and said, go ahead and do that. So as I put together the quote, when you're a business owner, one of the things that you're always thinking about is costs. How do you make your profit? How do you make sure, that you're not going back to the client or having a back and forth around pricing, and actually getting, the right, the right amount of money allocated to a project, enough for you to make your margins. So I went in, so I had used an application to create, the 3D model of the space and how it's going to look. It looks really nice when you have it and you can navigate.
Sorry, Lynette. Now we're seeing trees.
You're seeing trees.
Yeah, I
Oh,
think the
that
screen
sorry,
saver was
that is
busy.
because I moved the screen.
Yes.
So,
Now,
so
now we
please,
are back.
yeah, please
Okay.
excuse me. I'm going to look this way because that is where I have my screen. My
That's
sincere
fine.
apologies.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
so I looked at this and just put in what I was trying to do, which is basically this is the implementation that I'm proposing to the client. And I gave a description. I would like to give a quote for this. Check my approach below. So I had given a breakdown of how I did it and the amounts. And ChatGPT literally became the girlfriend everybody needs who says, girl, you are undervaluing yourself. And that is exactly what ChatGPT said. I think your quote is underpriced, particularly for the shop conversion, because there is a little shop that needs to go here. It's a school, so they want to sell school merchandise somewhere here. And ChatGPT went in and gave an entire breakdown, said what I had quoted, as you can see, which I was completely undervaluing myself because as business owners, sometimes you're worried that you're going to give a quote and someone's gonna be like, oh, that's a bit too high. It doesn't work. But then when you look at some of the variance actually between what I had quoted and what ChatGPT was giving me was quite high and what it came to. So I remember this evening I just took this, updated my documents and everything that I needed to send to the clients, clicked send. This was at 11 p.m. and went to bed because I was like, ChatGPT said this is what it costs to build this. That's what I'm going to give in. Um, the good news is the very next day I got a response, saying this looks interesting and something we can work with. Come in for final reviews. And there we go. I would have lost so much money in this project. It would probably have been very, very stressful for me to do if I had not employed the use of AI, right? And even if I had talked to peers who also do this kind of work, they would probably not have given me all the right information that would have been relevant for my particular, case. And in terms of business processes, I would have had to share a lot of information, for it to make sense. And sometimes in business, you also want to keep some cards to yourself. It doesn't help, of course, that I have shared everything on this call that is recorded. But just as an example, to say, AI isn't just for digital businesses. Sometimes in things like even woodworking and manufacturing, you can be able to do that. In my shoe manufacturing business, we got into this at the beginning of this year, manufacturing school shoes, looking at things like patents, looking at, protected designs, because that's the kind of area that you're getting into. Many people are producing shoes. We've seen issues with, international brands and local brands and all that. So going in to get this information, just going into an AI application and saying, hey, these are the things that I'm worried about as a business. is there something that, is there a blind spot to my approach? Is there something that I should be thinking about? And, getting that kind of information is quite interesting. So this is, yeah, just to encourage you that there are many, many ways that AI can be used in different businesses that are not just digital businesses. And then finally, that AI isn't relevant to women-led MSMEs, but we know that women entrepreneurs across Africa already use AI. I saw in one of the comments in the chat, folks use it for social media and marketing, customer engagement, pricing, as I have just shown you, bookkeeping. You can very easily, create your own QuickBooks or Salesforce, systems to be able to take care of your business. So yeah, so there's a lot that can be done. So, why does AI and automation matter really for the kind of business that you do? One, very important, it saves time. As I mentioned with the examples that I have given on just creating websites, which is something I used to be very good at, 20 years ago, when I was young and very quick and was able to, write code all day and just launch websites. That now I'm able to, create 4 or 5 websites in a week, and everything looks good. Reducing errors. I joked earlier this week with someone that one of the reasons I stopped writing code actively, well, for the fact that I now had a team, was your code to see if it has reduce or remove those errors, and how removing an error here might cause an error in the next thing. So you're doing, tests, unit testing, and doing all that. But AI has come in and significantly reduced some of those things. And every day as we go and as we move forward, the AI systems are becoming very, very complicated, or not complicated, but complex in their offerings, and they're able to catch some of these errors. So the human intervention is really reduced. And then an improved experience. Of course, there was a time, early last year, if you looked at my conversations with ChatGPT, you would think we're in a really bad relationship, because at a point it would be like, "Oh, this doesn't even work. Stop it. You're not very useful." And we used to have very harsh exchanges, to a point where it's saying, listen, you're undervaluing yourself. Look at this differently, and you're saying, okay, yeah, I will take that as it comes, with no corrections. So we can see that shift and how it has come. But for an AI system to get to the point where I'm able to work with, I generally work with about 4 or 5 AI systems. I pay for about 3 of those. But for us to get there, I have had to make a conscious decision of using it continuously, because then that is what we call machine learning. I'm giving it enough information that at any given point, if I have a conversation with it and I say "shoo," it knows exactly which company I'm referencing, and it gives me relevant data. If I talk about public policy, it knows exactly what I'm talking about. If I'm talking about sutures and bars and cutters, it knows that we're talking about the medical work. So I have had to give it as much information as possible, but then we also have to be very wary of the kind of information that we're sharing with AI, and that brings us to, the final bit, which is on deciding with data. The data has to be fed into the AI system for the AI system to give you, an output. As we know, though, garbage in, garbage out. So if we give the AI system wrong information, for example, if I went in and I said I'm a man in my 50s, and then that's kind of the kind of information that I give it, all the responses that I get will be based on a man in his 50s, right? So we have to also think about the kind of data that we are feeding the AI. And as businesses, we have to think about the kind of data that we have, which will eventually end up in these systems that, that will support us. And a quick tip here is really that AI has the potential to help you reduce costs, become more efficient, and increase the speed of your decisions and actions. Leadership in in the world of AI requires foresight and action. For those in manufacturing, for example, going back to my example of woodworking, there's a time when I'm not able to estimate how much in terms of inputs I need. How much wood do I need to develop a cabinet, for example, before I give a quote? When you're making, for instance, a table, if you're using mahogany or mango or teak or meru oak, the prices are going to be completely different than if you're using cypress or pine or, block boards or MDFs and things like that, right? So you have to know exactly because 1 foot of one particular type of wood might be like 1,000 shillings. Well, if you want to use like a more universal, might be like $10 more than another piece. So using AI, I'm able to go in. I do a rough sketch on my book. I put the dimensions, upload it, and say, how much would I need to do this? And then what would the price be given, all of this. And it's the same thing with like even construction. If you're building a house, you're saying, I want to build a house. This is how it looks. This is the square footage and stuff. Give me an estimate of the materials that I would be looking at. Of course, you have to look at like a plus or minus 15, 20%, on top of that. But then it kind of allows you to make decisions a bit faster. And then number two, we're looking at the data value chain. Why does it matter? I have, in most cases here, talked about data, right? Data is really the lifeline. If you're thinking about what makes AI alive, it has to be the data. And in most cases, when I was starting in my practice as a data scientist, we used to talk about big data and everything was big data. And I used to encounter some people who would say, but what if I have small data? What if I have, just two Excel sheets of my sales data? Is this useful or do I need 10 years of data? Any data that you have can really help you start to use AI and start to make your businesses better. If you have, sales from 3 weeks ago, it might not be enough, but we also have something called synthetic data. You can use that to generate, data for 1 year, given the trends of those 3 weeks. You can go into an agent and say, given my sales data, and given the particular sector that I'm in, can you generate for me sales data, synthetic sales data for the last like 1 year so that I can use this to project what my sales might look like. Of course, there are some businesses that work well with a more predictable cycle. So for instance, Kenya is now in our what we call our winter. There are businesses that do very well during the cold season. There are businesses that do very well during the hot season. There are businesses that do very well during the rainy season. So, an AI is able to generate that kind of data and tell you, okay, over the next, few weeks, if you have casuals, increase the number of casuals because you're going to experience more customers or more demand, or reduce the number of casuals because you're expected to have, a lower demand. So that is what data really does, right? And how do we get our data right, to be able to be useful and used within an AI system? So first of all, you have to define what you need to know and why. So you have to conceptualize that kind of data. And I know a lot of us started our businesses, we were not thinking about these things, and somehow we found ourselves here. It's not too late. You can always look back and look at, what kind of data do you have and why do you have it? What does it help you do? And then you go ahead and collect the data that you need. It could be forms, point of sale, messages, so communication with vendors or with customers, sensors. Then you store and manage that data. It has to be secure. It has to be accessible. If you are working in Kenya, in the EU, you always have to comply with the different laws around, data storage and management, collection, storage, and management. And then you have to process and clean the data that you have, remove duplicates, fix errors, make sure that the data that you have is clean and it's useful. And then now you can start thinking about analyzing it in dashboards, where you can extract trends and, segment the data to be able to give you the right kind of information. A lot of people start at step number 5. They would like, I have a business, I need a dashboard. And then they feed in all the data that they have, been collecting without going through this process to clean that out so that when you get to step number 5, you actually have the right kind of information, right? So you really have to be methodical in the way that you do this approach, and then you can start integrating and using that data. You feed it to tools, and this could be AI tools, and then you can start automating. And as you start automating, then you can learn. And automating the processes, then it's always a cycle, right? And you always have to go back to conceptualizing. Once you start learning and you see, okay, is this giving me the right kind of data, the right kind of information? No, I probably need, this other thing in order to make this, work better. So how do you do that? Then you start again. But then you can only get there, start at 1 once you've gotten to 7 and you have seen what the gaps are. And so it also helps you understand, what should I be collecting, what should I stop collecting. And you might find that maybe you are collecting too much information, you need to minimize to only what you need, and then you go on and on like that. So another tip here is AI systems are only as good as the data that you feed them. As I have said, it's garbage in, garbage out. So if you give it clean, good data that has been collected and conceptualized well, then you will always get, more likely than not, you will get good results. And then number 3, where to integrate AI and automation. There's multiple places that you can look at this without being experts, AI developers or experts AI users. And I have given some of these examples, but very quickly, some of the common business functions and the local tools that you could already be using and where you can integrate: customer service. And I have put in some of the tools that you could use if you're not already using any tools. And I think one of the most common one is WhatsApp chatbots and autoresponders. I'm personally not a big fan of autoresponders. You reach out to a business and you get an auto response and you assume you've had a conversation, and then someone comes back and like, ah. But then, for some businesses, it does work. Sales and marketing. These are also very important. I personally do a lot of, sales and marketing on social media platforms, and you'll notice that they use AI algorithms in putting out the advertisements, and this really work when you're stratifying like who your audience is and who you really want to reach and how you want to reach them. Finance and accounting, lots of applications now are able to use AI. So, for instance, I know on Expensify, you can upload even a handwritten receipt, and it's able to actually read, that receipt and automate it. So, if for your staff, when you're doing your accounting, you're doing your expensing and reimbursements, it's much easier when someone is able to, upload their receipt and they don't have to enter any other data, and it's able to actually read. It's able to read different currencies and feed into the finance and accounting tools. Of course, inventory management, operations and production. I have given some examples on that. Product development, I've also talked about that. Customer retention, being able to feed some of the conversations that you're having with customers, doing your channel analysis, and then putting this out and seeing, one, you can segment the different customers and see where they fall. And then you can work with the AI tools to say, okay, for this category of customers, how do I approach them so that I can bring them back to the fold? How do I improve their experiences? For customers who are happy with us, how do we upsell them, with the new services or products so that we can, keep making sales and growing? And then there is, of course, performance monitoring. There are many, many tools, and specifically this comes for businesses that have automated systems, and also when you're looking at businesses that also have staff that are being monitored in terms of their outputs. So yeah, you can use different tools to be able to do that. So next we have the roadmap, the five-step roadmap to AI integration. And this is something that you do over time. And today we're going to also look at how to map your business processes. But then there are five steps really that you need to go through. One is you need to map your business processes. You need to look at, you step back and you look at your business holistically and you try to map that and to understand like each process. It doesn't have to be a very complex exercise. We'll go through a practical way of doing this and you map it. And then once you've mapped it, you identify your pain points. What are the things that keep you up at night with the different processes? What kind of data do you have around this, and how can you actually, use this to help you with the things that you have identified, especially your pain points? And then you go into identifying a tool. What kind of tool can help you? And sometimes it's tools that you are already using, right? How can you take these tools and apply them to what you have? And then you monitor, learn, and improve. You have to start from mapping, understanding the pain points, getting the right data, selecting a tool, and then you get to number five, which is you monitor, you learn, and improve, and then you go back to number one until you get to a point where you feel like you have optimal output in that particular process, and then you can go into the next and to the next and always just improving. And a quick tip here really is start with an AI strategy that identifies the why, what is your purpose, and the what can you automate, and then the how, what are the practical steps and the outcomes that you can look at. So there are various opportunities within this and in the use of AI tools. Number one, we talked about things like customer retention, and I also mentioned churn analysis. You can personalize messages and offers based on purchase history when you cluster your customers and look at how to reach out to them. You know you also have to be transparent about AI. And there, of course, are some businesses that try to put in AI to replace like the human experience. But then the AI, I think there was a case, I could be wrong in this particular, I think it was McDonald's in the US that put in an AI system in their drive-through. And there was a big mess. They actually sued the AI company that provided the solution, because then someone would order a milkshake and it would come with an onion ring on top of it, because that's what the system is getting. And then there's like the voice to text systems. You say something, they can't hear you. If anyone uses Siri, this has become a big pain point for me. Sometimes you say, call Olivia Okech, and then it's like calling Lillian Atieno, and you're like, wait. No, that's not what I said. And sometimes, you use some of these AIs when, when you want to be hands-free, and the experience really becomes very, very bad. So yeah, so you also have to be transparent with your customers about the use of AI. There are multiple things that you can do in customer retention and channel analysis, automating loyalty rewards and reminders, feedback loops, using simple CRMs to track interactions and segment the customers. And then also, tracking.
Have we lost Lynette?
Yes.
All right. We'll give her a minute. I think she's trying to find a way back. But thank you so much for also the engagement on the chat. We'll have a session on Q&A, and I'm just gathering all the questions, and then we'll ask Lynette to respond to them. But go ahead, Lynette. I'm glad that you're back. And just for context, we have 40 minutes to go. So yeah.
Yes. I'm
All
almost
right.
done with this section. I'm sorry. The one thing I was really nervous about, which was a blackout, just happened. So, so I'll just go through very quickly. I should be almost done. Yeah, so I'll go through this very quickly, and then we can do the practical. So yeah, customer retention and churn analysis, pricing strategies with AI. You also have this. You can, and I've given some examples. So I'll just go through this very quickly because I still have a few slides to go. Environmental impact and green considerations, especially for those in manufacturing. I think these are also good examples of where AI can help. And then we have opportunities in financing and fundraising and product development. I'm sure, as we all know these days, when you're putting together proposals, AI is a really big a big tool for us as we go. Then there's performance monitoring and KPI, and I've also talked about this. How do you look at the work that you're doing and how it's running, and the performance of the different elements and things that you're tracking. And then we have, of course, regulations and global best practices. I mentioned some of this as I mentioned. Some of the examples I might have might be heavily Kenyan, but also a lot of African countries do have, their own regulations. In Kenya, for instance, we have the Kenya Data Protection Act and we have the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner that also looks after the compliance of this. In Kenya, if you are a data controller or a data processor, you have to be registered. So that is if you're responsible for collecting data and processing it, or you're responsible for collecting data on behalf of someone who's going to process it, you have to register. Then we have the General Data Protection Regulations of the EU, also another, good piece of legislation that folks have to be very clear and aware about. And especially if you are exporting your services, to the EU region and out of African countries, that is also something to be aware about. The EU AI Act and UNESCO do have some set of principles on ethics and how to actually, work with data, and especially when it comes to AI systems and how we feed data. So also another piece of legislation to look at. And then, we have within the toolkit your 60 to 30-day action roadmap, where it's like week by week, and then over the 2 months, how you will evaluate yourself. Map one process, identify 1 to 2 pain points. That's week 1. Week 2, you commit to one small automation. You collect and clean the data. I think we've covered some of this. You implement a tool, and then you evaluate results, and you go back. So you can do this. This roadmap can actually be shorter, depending on the size of your business and how many key players there are within the organizations when it comes to making decisions. As I mentioned before, please keep these processes iterative and incremental. So don't assume that because you have mapped one process, then that's it, that's the end. Always go back and review, what you have done, and there are many tools that can help you do that. So I want us to, I'll go through this very quickly to give us a guide, and then I'll provide a link where we will go in and try to do a simple exercise of mapping, your processes. So we're calling this my AI starter plan, which is a gamified workbook for women entrepreneurs. And, we are right on time when it comes to the 40 minutes, but let's try to keep it to about 20 minutes in doing the mapping, and you can get your results. So, how this works: number one, you map your processes, you identify your pain points, you look at your data foundations. So, there's going to be guiding questions, and then you choose your first AI tool. What you'll do over, as we've seen in the roadmap, over the next like 2, 3 months is you learn, monitor, and you improve. And then you can you'll get, once you are done with the exercise, you'll get a score and you can download the document that has your score. It's a score out of 50, and it will also place you, in this pyramid where there are the folks who will be at the bottom, which is the explorer. But then as you move and as you keep iterating and learning and improving, you move on to being an experimenter. And then you have the implementer and the transformer. These are the 4 levels. And with your report, you will get, like, depending on your level, if you find that you're at explorer, there will be some practical tips of how to get to experimenter. So the next time you're iterating, you will also see, how you're improving and the practical steps that you need to do this. So I will skip all of this because it's pretty much explaining this. I'm gonna paste in the chat um, a link. So I'm going to stop sharing. Olivia, should I put it in the Q&A? Do I have, I'll just put it in the chat option.
Put it in the
So,
chat.
yes, perfect. So I've pasted a link, which is the Data Science Impact Hub, AI Readiness. So just click on that link. We just need to make it personal. This is optional. You just have to accept, that we'll get the responses, and the responses will be aggregated. I'll also show you what the end result looks like. So it is now 12:28. Shall we start? So this is an individual exercise for the next 12 minutes. Then we'll check in and
Sorry, is it my network or how's that bad?
Yes, Lynette has left again, but the link is in the chat
Okay.
for everyone. Feel free to go through it, do the mapping, and then we'll come back in 12 minutes for the rest of the session.
In the meantime, please keep your questions coming on the chat. We'll have a few minutes at the end to look at some of them, but also just to respond to all the questions and share with all the documentation that will come out of this masterclass. Thank you. All right. Are we okay? I'm seeing a few already done and downloaded the results. So in 1 minute, Lynette will be back, and then we can share some of the experiences.
Hi, Olivia. Hi, everyone. I hope everything is going well so far. Sorry, my internet had a big situation, but we are back.
I
Perfect.
see there are one or two that are done. So I don't know if
Yes.
we can get experiences already.
Great. Perfect. I see Tisime says she's an implementer. Just downloaded her report. I'd be curious to hear how your experience was with that. Great. I see we have 44 total submissions so far.
We also have Lynette, who's Lynette Changtok, who has done and downloaded the results.
Caroline, could you please reload that again? Let me share one screen here. So we can give it another 5 minutes, so Olivia, if that's okay, until just a quarter to. Then we can move on
Right.
as the rest continue to, yeah.
Okay.
In the meantime, can you see my screen on total submissions?
Yes.
Perfect. Yeah. So
Yes, we can
this
see.
just shows us the ecosystem dashboard. So far, we have 48 submissions. And the breakdown from these cohorts, we have four who are at transformer. That means, super AI ready and are already implementing AI well. Then we have the implementers, experimenters, and we have the explorers. So keep going. As the questionnaire says, there's no wrong or right answer. This is just to give you an idea of where you stand as a business and the areas that you can also improve. Great. The submissions are coming in really well. We now have 55. We have another 2 minutes. So I'll stop talking and just allow us to finish. Thanks. Great. In the interest of time, I think we can move forward. So far, we have 66 submissions. So please keep going. This will be a nice report for you. So I'll very quickly go through the next phase, and then I can hand it back over to Olivia. I hope I will take about 5 minutes to finish because I also know we're running a bit behind. Just a quick moment.
Are we able to get sort of like one or two, somebody to speak about the experiences, or do we move on?
Yeah, that's totally fine. So please, yeah, go ahead. Anyone can come
Is it?
off mute. Yeah. Olivia,
Yeah, is anyone maybe one or two people who want to speak about the experience? Victorine, I see you have quite an interesting observation that are you kind enough to, say something about it? Or anyone else who's ready? Okay. I'm not sure if they cannot speak. All right. I don't see anyone who's willing to give the experience. Maybe then we proceed. Okay. Let's just, can we unmute Victorine so that she can speak?
Sure. Let me find her.
Akoth Victorine.
It should be possible now.
Right, go
Yes,
ahead,
I
Victorine.
can.
Okay,
Thank
maybe
you.
just 30 seconds. Yeah.
Thank you, Olivia, and I'm happy to see Lynette once more. I think I'm just getting exposed with this class because how come I'm a business person, I'm so keen on AI, and I don't even know the tool I need to integrate into making my work easier, something that we really credit ourselves for as young people. So struggling to have a choice for that and trying to answer those questions as genuine as possible was a learning curve to me, really. And I hope we also further this discussion even later within ourselves as business people, that which is the most efficient tool really that we can use to make our work easy, especially in the customer service and sales. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Victorine. Back to you, Lynette.
Great. Thanks for that, Victorine. And yes, sometimes it takes a session like this for you to really identify the gaps. But as I said, please, be honest about it, map it out, and then, we can always find the help. And the toolkit also has some recommended tools, but then I'm sure, and I know that there are more out there. I want to very quickly talk about data sovereignty and responsible AI, and really how we think about this. I have already made some mention of data. And how, as businesses, I guess back to the Victorian sentiment, how we can have confidence in the AI era, but then confidence in what we do, but then going back as well to knowing that while AI is a superpower, data is the fuel, and for the fuel, we also need to make sure that we're using clean fuel to power our operation. And once we protect the data and we clean it and we ensure that our businesses are carrying out responsible AI and data practices, we will build unbreakable customer trust. We will avoid paralyzing regulatory fines, and we'll talk about some examples in a few minutes. Secure our proprietary business logic and scale the businesses ethically and sustainably. Kenya's ODPC framework really has three key elements. There's the authority, which is the ODPC, the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner. Their subject rights, understanding what the rights are of the different subjects, and every Kenyan citizen is a data subject, and they have rights before your business does. So we always have to know that. And then there's compliance. I talked about the registration as data controllers and data processors, which is also very key when you're handling data. So some case studies. There's a company called Whitepath that was penalized 5 million Kenyan shillings, which is a lot of money for a company. And the reason they were penalized is because they accessed customers' mobile contacts to send unsolicited and threatening messages. In some cases, we find a customer comes to your business, they pay using mobile money applications or services, and then you take that contacts, or you have an event, folks register and they leave you their email address. They have not consented to you doing anything with that data beyond registering. You take that data and you start sending them marketing information, or you take that data and you start sending unsolicited messages. That is a crime, and you can be fined. And these are things that as businesses sometimes we don't think about. You're thinking you're not harming anyone, so why would you be fined? We had a case of Casavera and the Roma School, where in terms for anyone running a school business, you will be at an activity, you take pictures, it's a sports day and you want to show how, inclusive your school is to different activities, and you go and put a billboard up somewhere, or you put up a Facebook post or even an Instagram post talking about your school without getting any minors. When you're working with minors, you need consent from their parents without getting the parents' consent, whether you get into an agreement or so, or you go to for those who are doing farming, a farmer's market or a showcase in an open space. People are coming to your stand, you take pictures with their faces in it and you put it on your social media, you can be sued. So those are things to think about. In some cases, some bars and restaurants, used to invest heavily in photographers. When people come, they're having a good time. You take pictures, you share on social media. There's a company that was fined, I think it was $500,000 shillings. So you really always have to be careful about how data is used. There are global failures as well. So these are not just common local issues. There are global issues as well, where, for instance, Clearview AI scraped billions of social media images for, to train its AI, and then, that was wrong. So they were fined. And, especially in the EU region, the fines are very, very heavy. So you always have to just be aware. There are multiple examples, but because of time, we might not, go through all of them. So you always have to be aware about, internal data leaks. And these sometimes come from employees. You've given someone a delivery to go to a customer, to deliver it, to give them the customer's address, the customer's phone number, etc., etc. And then they go and, add that customer into a fundraising WhatsApp chat, and that is your employee. That becomes a liability on your end. So these are some of the things that you think about, because they do have consequences if you do not get ahead of them. So we always have to try and promote a responsible AI culture where privacy is not a hurdle to innovation. It is the guardrail that ensures your innovation survives and thrives in the long term, and especially when it comes to your customers. And there are 4 pillars of AI responsibility. One is transparency. Be clear when AI is being used. We find that some companies now have AI guidelines and policies where you can use AI, where you cannot use AI, and how to actually disclose that you're using AI. We have accountability. At any given point, we have the human in the loop. So everything that AI is producing, always make sure there's a human being who's reviewing it, even if it goes as is, but then there's someone who gives an okay. There's fairness as the third pillar, where you audit your AI models for bias. And then there's safety, always robustly protecting against data leakages. And data leakages don't just happen. In computing, we say the problem is always between the keyboard and the chair. So the person who's sitting in there is where some of the issues come from. And then we have the data privacy audit checklist. One, you have to map your data. What do you have? Audit the AI vendors. So the people who you work with, are they using your data to train their models? Do you have any express agreements when it comes to that? You review your consent forms for clarity. In most cases, you will find you take your staff, they are at a retreat because they're your staff and your contract covers it. You take your pictures, you put them on your website. Someone leaves, their picture is still on your website, then they sue you. So you always have to think about things like those. Always implement consent forms. Implement enterprise AI versions. I think earlier I talked about enterprise versus consumer AI, where enterprise AI versions always have better privacy principles and privacy guardrails when it comes to data. But of course, they tend to be more expensive. So you also have to see where your business is and how to actually do that. Then train your team on AI data entry risks. always train your team. I do data privacy audits for companies, and in most cases, people assume that their team is the best and they will never do anything to betray them. But that is always the weakest point where the data leaks start. And then register with the ODPC in the case of, for those in Kenya, if you're processing personal data. So if you're collecting it for your own self, or if you're collecting it on behalf of an organization that is going to process this. And then very finally, privacy equals a competitive edge. Businesses that prioritize privacy grow trust 3 times faster than those focused solely on AI outputs. And we have seen cases where, there's some corporates that have been suspected to be leaking information to government, and there's always like a call for people to boycott, their services. And those are the things to think about. Your customers have to always be confident that their data is safe with you, no matter what kind of business that you're in. Your customers shouldn't be worrying that you're going to leak their data or that your systems are not secure enough to be able to do the right thing. And with that, I have come to the end of this presentation. I'm going to stop there and hand over to Olivia. Thanks so much to everyone. And I hope we will keep engaging. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Lynette. I see there's a bit of confusion in the chat. Maybe I just want to mention 2 things for Adelaide and the other colleague who's lost. We had a session on, the AI readiness practical that everybody went through. We finished with that, and then now we will continue the masterclass and the importance of responsible AI. So I hope you have sort of caught up, and I think there's a lot of interest on the AI Readiness Navigator, Lynette, and there are people who are asking if they can go back to it after the masterclass so they can, take some more time to do it. Maybe you can speak to that a little bit as well.
Yes, absolutely. The navigator is going to be on the website. So please, tomorrow, next week, later today, when you're settled and, digesting all the information from today, please feel free to go there. The report that you'll get is personalized to you and your business. So yeah, so no rush to actually do it right now. This will be there. And the idea is that you can come back in a month and do it again and see how you score in a month versus now. Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Lynette. And just as we wrap up, as we mentioned, there's a couple of questions that were on the chat that relate to what are the impact of connecting your social platforms with AI as marketing strategy, how to configure a chatbot like WhatsApp. There was a question on, your business experience and how to give an example to use data value chain, etc. I think most of these questions have been addressed in the AI toolkit. We will post it here on the chat. My colleague Kayla will post the AI toolkit on the chat, but we'll also follow through with an email for all those who participated to share the presentations, the AI toolkit, and also reshare the link to the Readiness Navigator so that you can have, access to these resources. I just want to thank everybody for joining the masterclass. We really hope it was useful to you and to your business. This is just the beginning of a conversation. I think this is something that's very interesting to us as We4A, and also I guess there's a lot of interest on AI for business growth. And so this is something we will continue, giving as much resource as we can and giving it the due attention that is required. So on behalf of myself, of GIZ, of the We4A program, and of everybody who's attended, thank you so much for giving your time. Thank you, Lynette, for taking us through this very useful session. And I hope that we will continue engaging and, really use AI responsibly to grow our business. Thank you very much. I wish you all a good afternoon or morning from wherever you're joining us from. Thank you and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye all.
All right. Thank you. Bye.